Hello and welcome to The Extras. I'm Tim Millard, your host, and joining me is George Feltenstein for a very special announcement of the next 4K release from the Warner Archive. Hi, George.
Hello, Tim. Great to be with you as always.
Well, first off, I want to let people know this is not the October release announcement. However, we're going to be talking about a title that comes out October 14th, and it is your fourth 4K release from the Warner Archive, and I know it's creating a lot of excitement. Why don't you tell us about this title, George?
Well, this is a film that we actually revisited not that long ago, less than 5 years ago, and it was a big deal because unusual for us, because we usually don't have the budget to do things like what we did. We did a 2-disc special edition of The Curse of Frankenstein and had not one, not two, but 3 aspect ratios, so nobody would feel that their preferred aspect ratio was left out. And we worked from 4K scans of the separations, which turned out to be better sources than the camera negative that was so faded. It was a huge seller for us, very, very exciting for us. And I would say probably maybe a year and a half ago, we hooked up with the people at Hammer Films in UK, and Hammer has had a lot of ownership changes in the last, 20 years or so. They've been around for 90 years, but there's been a lot of change there, and now they have new management that's really embracing their heritage. And Curse of Frankenstein is the bellwether film that really started and established them as the leader in horror filmmaking in the late 50s through the 60s and into the early 70s. And that reputation kind of coincides with work that they did with Warner Brothers. But the relationship with Warner Brothers began as Warner Brothers was the distributor for The Curse of Frankenstein in 1957 worldwide, including the UK. Since then, UK rights reverted to the Hammer company. And so we've had the rights for the rest of the world. They have the rights in the UK and Ireland. And they were very impressed with our work on the Curse of Frankenstein Blu-ray. So we began discussions on how we could work together because they wanted to create a 4K UHD of The Curse of Frankenstein. And we said, well, let's join forces. Let's put our heads together and make this a great thing for everybody around the world who loves Hammer horror. It's an understatement to say how huge the fan base is for the Hammer horror films. We're fortunate to have many of them on the Warner side, but they are actually sprinkled throughout. I think almost every major studio partnered with Hammer at one point or another. But the first 3 films that they did reestablished Frankenstein, Dracula, and the Mummy in that order to a new generation that was learning about these characters as the old Universal movies were hitting television for the first time. At that very time, it was a whole new way of modernizing the cinematic approach to the genre. And the impact that Hammer had as a production company resonates with audiences of all ages. And, some of these films played children's matinees in the 60s.
Wow.
But it was scary movies, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Everybody loves that.
Right.
So being able to work in a partnership with people who hold their legacy so dear and bring all of our material together to work together so that we announce this new release simultaneously so that people would know that they had a US opportunity to have what we have collaborated on. And there's the special features that we created in the past, special features that they created in the past, and a lot of new special features have been created for this incredibly important release. we have a 4K 3-disc set that is 2 BD100s that contain some special features as well as 3 versions of the film, one in the 1:66 aspect ratio, which is how it played in Britain and probably most of Europe, the 1:85 aspect ratio as it played here in the United States, and then open matte 1:37, which is how most people experience this film, either watching it on a VHS tape or going back further, 16 millimeter prints at your local library or your elementary school, your day camp, and, on television in syndication. That's how everybody saw it, as a square. So it wasn't meant to be shown that way in theaters, but people say, well, I remember the edge of this castle and so forth and so on. So what we did when we did the Blu-ray was give all 3 aspect ratios the golden treatment so that whatever your preference, this leads to a happier consumer, because some people like things in different ways, and sometimes it's not practical and you can't really do that. But there's a justified reason here for doing it, because what is in the 137, the square, is what was captured in the open matte full aperture. What this also has is, first and foremost, the default audio is the original mono, but they've created Dolby Atmos for this. And I believe there's also 5.1. And we also have multilingual subtitles that will help people around the world enjoy this film and this presentation. I have to also say that all the folks at Hammer UK have been a delight to work with, and I'm hoping that our partnership will continue.
Well, there are many people who love the version that you put out in 2020, the 2-disc Blu-ray. What is exactly the reason that they should upgrade if they own that one to this new 4K?
Well, it's really 2 different decisions. If you already have the Blu-ray that we put out in 2020, the get here is the many hours of special features you didn't get. Plus, there are 2 new commentaries, I believe, and then there are archival commentaries. So there is all of that, as
Right.
well as the supplemental Atmos remix, which obviously is conveyed on the Blu-ray. So the Blu-ray is 3 BD50, so everything's at a nice, robust, healthy bit rate. And the 3rd disc is just special features. Now,
Right.
that same Blu-ray disc that's in the Blu-ray release, disc number 3, that accompanies 2 BD100s for the 4K release, where everything's at a nice, robust bit rate. You get the 3 versions of the movie and some special features there too. So both versions are loaded.
Right.
And if you already bought our Blu-ray, which will stay in print because we're very proud of it, and it has less discs, which means it's less of a retail cost. But you will also have the choice of this deluxe collector's edition, which for a little more money, you get a 3rd bonus disc. And if you're a real Hammer fan and you just have Blu-ray, where you're taken care of.
Yep.
And if you happen to be a 4K consumer, you get the upgrade to 4K UHD with Dolby Vision and HDR10. Everything is there to optimize the viewing experience, and high dynamic range and ultra high definition just in general brings you a wealth of more color, and it really kind of ratchets in the image. The SRP of the 4K 3-disc set is $34.99. The SRP for the 3-disc Blu-ray set is $29.99. And I feel comfortable that we're providing the consumer with a reasonably priced, exceptional release.
And is there anything that you wanted to point out on any of the extras that you're especially wanting to be sure that fans know about?
Well, I think the most important thing is it represents, because it's archival, there are things that go back, several years, representing different groups of film historians and passionate fans and pieces people have seen before. There's even something that Hammer unearthed, which I think is a kind of adorable. Years before there was video cassette or all the things that we have now, if you wanted to own a movie, the closest you could come, with rare exception, was to buy an 8mm or a Super 8mm, and if you were lucky, sound abridgment of a feature film. And they've put the Super 8 sound abridgment of the Curse of Frankenstein as part of this collection. I mean, it's really everything but the kitchen sink. And as when I was a kid, those little 17-minute Super 8 abridgments, that was the best you could have hoped for. So there's a nostalgia factor in there. It's just really been a labor of love for both companies to work together. And, this opened at the Warner Theatre in London and was distributed by Warner Brothers. So this is a part of our heritage, our history, and that we share that with Hammer. And that brings me particular joy because I know how abundant the fan base is for Hammer Horror, and specifically these films that starred Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee. They were and remain heroes to generations of horror fans. And so to have this kind of presentation healthily before Halloween and before the holidays, that's a great thing. And I really hope that folks enjoy it.
If you aren't yet subscribed, you may want to do that, as we're going to have more information about the Curse of Frankenstein and, of course, all of the October releases, which are now going to be 2 different podcasts coming up in the near future. So please subscribe and follow us. That helps the show as well. Until next time, you've been listening to Tim Millard. Stay slightly obsessed.